Congressman de Venecia, I've known you for a while. This is the first time we're meeting in person. May I call you Toff?
I can't believe it.
I know. Can I call you Toff?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
First, congratulations on the Creative Industries Law. But
thank you.
Let's step back for a minute and maybe you can talk about the big picture here. What do you mean exactly when you say creative industries? Because there are 50 sectors that we're talking about, right? What is the big picture and what is the economic potential that you're looking to tap?
Okay, so when we were deliberating on this measure, there were three frameworks in which to define the creative industries. There was the UNESCO framework, there was an UNCTAD framework, and then there's a WIPO, or a World Intellectual Property Organization framework. Yeah. Their inception of creative industries is more copyright-based industries. Right. And so after making an assessment of all three, of course in partnership with NEDA, in particular the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, and consultations with the sectors, we decided to go with the UNCTAD definition of creative industries. So these are basically trades in either goods or services that have a potential to generate wealth and value and livelihood through the generation and harnessing intellectual property. And so we follow the UNCTAD definition of 9 domains, which aggregate as many as actually 70 creative industries. So obviously the one that you're most familiar with is publishing and print media.
Right. Obviously.
That's one. 2, perhaps SMNI is part of it. There's the audiovisual, audiovisual media. 3rd is design, and there are actually 3 sectors there. There's the object-based design, which is like fashion and furniture, things that you can hold. And then there's also the place-based design. So you have from architecture to interior design, urban planning, landscape architecture, engineering. Right. And then you also have communication design, which is like graphic design, which is really more on creative services. So there are overlaps. The 3rd is creative services. So there's, like I said, graphic design, there's live events, there's advertising.
There's a game design, is that also part of the services?
Yes. I would say that would be part of digital interactive media, also in creative services.
I see.
Again, overlaps. So 4th, there's digital interactive media. All right. And then 5th, there's traditional cultural expressions. So craft is there, gastronomy is there. 6th is cultural sites. So libraries, museums, heritage sites, which can be activated and made more productive with a creative industry mindset. 7th is visual arts. So everything from paintings to sculptures, photography, performance art. And then of course the one that's closest to my heart is performing arts. So you have opera, you have theater, you have dance, spoken word. I think I'm missing another one.
Well, quite a broad umbrella.
So 9 altogether.
But would you say that, you know, we could distill it and say the end result really is more jobs? Is that a correct way to interpret it, or is it much broader than that?
Well, more jobs, more revenue.
That's certainly one, right?
Definitely. We actually define the KPIs in the law. So the KPIs for this creative economy policy is revenue, jobs, GDP contribution, market creation or expansion, both domestically and overseas. 5th is value creation. 6th is investment targets. 7th is export. And 8th is intellectual property towards an intellectual property ecology. And we can talk about IP ecology more later.
And you were saying that from your previous interviews, that one of your dreams is to make the Philippines #1 in creative industries. What does that exactly mean when you say, I think by 2030, if I'm not mistaken. What does that mean for the Philippines or for the ordinary guy on the street?
Well, actually, that's not my original idea. That was actually the target that was set by the Creative Economy Council of the Philippines, which is an NGO. headed by Paolo Mercado.
Our friend who you've never met in
who
person?
I've never met still.
Right,
2.5 years after working together on Zoom and being like his disciple somewhat. And DTI. So it's the CECP and DTI that set 2030 as our target.
Okay.
And sure, you might say it's a lofty goal.
Okay.
Is that even doable?
Okay.
But based on the UNCTAD statistics in 2017, apparently the Philippines is #1 in terms of the export of our creative services.
Okay.
And we are #5 in ASEAN in terms of our export of creative goods.
Okay.
Aggregating both goods and services, we are #5.
Right.
And there are a lot of bottlenecks and pain points in individual value chains of each creative industry that need to be addressed.
Right.
And so it's an ambitious goal, but it's certainly doable, especially now that we have an enabling framework, a law that, #1, defines what the creative industries are, because there seems to be a lot of confusion about it. Is it culture and the arts?
Right.
Is it media? Is it business? Is it science and technology and innovation? It's actually all of that.
Okay.
All of these concentric circles kind of like merging together to create this very definitive, innovation-driven sector.
Okay.
And yeah, there's a lot of potential to be able to harness, given that now there's a framework, and then it creates a new government agency attached to the DTI that is primarily charged with developing the sector.
Okay.
And then we're institutionalizing a lot of programs, a lot of support services that individual creatives and, of course, firms, businesses, MSMEs, startups will be able to benefit from.
Right. Help me wrap my head around this, because, I'd like to believe I'm, with your generation, but actually much older, but
aren't you a millennial?
No. I'd like to think I am, but seriously, an older generation would think that the more effective way to go about it is to develop hard industries, manufacturing, steel, and yet here you are, you're championing creative industries. Some would say it's a soft industry. Maybe it's wrong to say it that way, but you even have DTI Secretary Fred Pascual, who's also banking on, and in fact, not just him, but the Marcos government seems to be sold, or at least very interested in developing the creative industries as part of our economic roadmap.
Yeah. Well, based on a WIPO and Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines survey that was undertaken in 2012 to 2014, somewhere within that period, they were able to generate a 7.34% GDP contribution from copyright-based industries, which is another exception or another name for the creative industries. In fact, in South Korea, it's called content industries. So it's all the same, but that's not even counting gastronomy and the freelance economy. So it's probably even bigger than that. And so what's interesting is that even in the Philippine Development Plan during the Duterte administration from 2017 to 2022, already they identified a pivot or a shift towards the knowledge economy. Especially as the fourth industrial revolution ripens, the digital age is upon us. It's everywhere, it's ubiquitous. And so, creative industries is really the way forward, especially in a country that is recovering and is still reeling from the deleterious effects of the pandemic. And we always strike a comparison between what will hopefully be the Philippine experience of Build Back Better with creativity, especially with the law, to what South Korea experienced in 1997 during the Asian financial crisis. So obviously they had lost their main driver of their economy, which is manufacturing, to China. And so Kim Dae-jung, the president then, had to pivot to a new growth strategy. And they decided to invest in their talent. And so everything that we're enjoying now, from the K-pop to the K-drama, the K-beauty, all the apps, K-everything, the Hallyu, these are creative consequences of an intentional policy shift on the part of their government. And so we look forward to the Philippines experiencing some kind of renaissance in terms of our creative output, in terms of our creatives being able to accomplish amazing things abroad. And they've been doing that on their own, by the way.
Okay.
Now with
with a lot of success.
and with a lot of success. What more if there's like a push
Right.
from government and everything seems to be strategized, aligned, coordinated, especially with this new government agency that will be created. We look forward to that creative future finally being upon us.
Right. What did you like in Korea? Because I heard you mention Korea as a prime model for what you're trying to do in the Philippines. But of course, many of the things that creative industries do is in the realm of the private sector. Where's the convergence between the government programs and the private sector initiative that create all of this output, as you were saying?
Right. So let's talk about your industry, Klink.
Okay, media.
Which is media, print media, for example. There's so many pain points in your value chain.
Right.
That's also the reason why when you guys were in Congress recently, or at least your colleagues,
Right.
we had a discussion on measures that need to be explored to help print sort of move forward into the digital age.
Okay.
I used to work in print myself.
You were a columnist.
I was a columnist. I was a magazine editor.
Right.
And so it was very challenging and very heartbreaking to see all of these magazines close like 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Right.
A prime mover in the sector went fully digital, and some others that were really buzzy online every time a cover would come out, it just all started to close one by one. Because number one, the cost of paper and ink is so high.
Expensive, yeah.
In fact, it's 60% of production cost for print. And what can government do to reduce the cost of paper? Maybe through tariff,
Right.
or maybe through exemption from value add, the tax, and many others. Number two, things like market. Like, if the state could serve as an institutional buyer for the output of the print sector, from our DepEd schools to even CHED and the state universities and colleges, having that guaranteed market is already such a huge relief for firms that dabble in that space. How do we develop the culture of reading as early as K-12, so that when they graduate, eventually they will become the consumers of print and their output? And third, knowing that advertising is one of the biggest revenue generators in print, and with digital and above-the-line advertising and out-of-home advertising, rather, how do we incentivize advertisers to go back to print? So perhaps maybe VAT exemption if they're going to advertise in a newspaper or a magazine, so that we can keep these creative industries afloat and actually enable them to thrive as they do in other countries, even if we're in the middle of the fourth industrial revolution.
Very interesting.
So meaning to say, there's so much that government can do for each of these creative industries, but it's just that there has not been this linkage or their synergy or even a framework for collaboration. And that's essentially what the law is able to do.
Yeah, we'll talk about that law in a minute. We'll take a quick break. This is Business and Politics. We're talking to Congressman de Venecia.